We are back for episode 15 of Journey to a Million. We made it, episode 1-5. And you got today myself, Drew Skyberg, and I'm alongside here, Zack Roush and Jared Valesky, the Journey to a Million squad. We return here. No guest for this first half of the episode. We're talking Colts. So Jared's really our guest here, technically, as the Colts fan. But yeah, later in the episode, we'll be talking Titans with Titans fanatics. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, with that, Jared, Zach, how you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
And yeah, let's get right into it, guys. We're talking the Indianapolis Colts, and yeah, we'll start. I mean, Jared, so you're kind of like the interviewee here. Let's talk about it. So the Colts this past season, if you want to give them a grade here, where would you grade them? I know we got to watch you in person, see their ending, so that was kind of fun at Detroit and at Ford Field. But where would you put it?
Just basing off of how the season ended in general, I would probably say like a C plus, maybe even a C. If they would have continued their win streak after they beat the Patriots and Cardinals, they were looking top 10 teams in the league, but then, Raiders and Jaguars happened. So I'd probably say like a C.
Fair. I think the big story, of course, was Jonathan Taylor, right? I mean, just having the year he had, and then I had him in a fantasy league, so that came up big for me. But yeah, Carson Wentz was the other, I think, big story. I think the quarterback and the running back, because the defense, of course, is it's something that the Colts have, and it's consistent, I'd say. So with that, I guess let's talk, some team needs now and some of the moves that we saw take place. I think the big story, I mean, we'll talk about it right away, is the whole quarterback situation with Carson Wentz getting shipped off to the Commanders and then bringing in their guy. They got their guy. Matt Ryan is their guy. And, Zach, Jared, what are your thoughts on the Colts getting a guy like Matt Ryan, moving on from Wentz? Was that the right decision?
I would say it's really early still, but you saw people like Baker Mayfield who was asking for a first-round pick, and the Colts weren't going to give up another first-round pick the way that it went with Wentz. They don't have a pick now in this first draft, and the first-round pick of this draft. So, I mean, when you look at what you gave up, we only gave up a third-round pick for him, and we negotiated this contract a lot. We just got $6 million in cap space back today even. So, I mean, when you look at that, yeah, he's our guy, but I think it's just another big Band-Aid because he's only going to be with us for 2 or 3 years. He is 37 years old coming up here. So, I mean, he doesn't have much left with his career. So I don't really know yet, but I like it for now, but we'll see what he can do in these few years he's with us.
Zach?
Yeah, I think the Colts have a good enough roster around him that he'll help them enough and get them over the hump to the playoffs, unlike Carson Wentz was able to do. But I don't think, obviously, it's not a long-term solution, and I don't think it'll put them in Super Bowl contention, especially with how stacked the AFC is.
Yeah, it seems like the whole Band-Aid, done by the Colts, it's been a common theme at the quarterback position ever since Andrew Luck. I had to say it. I know we've included that in a couple episodes, but it's just how it is. And, Philip Rivers served as it, Jacoby Brissett. I mean, talk about a Band-Aid that really didn't work. But yeah, Matt Ryan, hopefully he can be a Band-Aid longer. I know we were talking 1 to 2, 3 years maybe is what you'd hope for, I think, at least. But they really got hit in the draft, right? I mean, that's the big story. And we'll talk about the draft in this episode as well. But free agent-wise, I mean, you look at needs, receivers, one that stands out, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, however, we just reported as the time of the recording, he signed with the Chiefs. So that's kind of a guy, players, people on the Colts, Colts fans were even looking for. And I know, Jared, you mentioned Allen Robinson. What do you think about the Colts free agent or wide receiver situation? And with free agency, do you think, that's still a way to replenish it? Is there any other guys you're looking at?
Yeah, Allen Robinson's gone now, obviously. But we got 3 guys I'm looking at. So bottom of the list is OBJ. He's coming off his injury. I don't know if he's really gonna what value he would be. I mean, he would cost a lot and he wouldn't play the whole season. The next guy would be Jarvis Landry. He's kind of he could be our Pittman would be our 1. He could be our 2 probably. He'd be a nice addition, and we still have 20 to 30 million cap space, so we could sign him for a few years probably. And then the top person that I would look at is Julio Jones. obviously Matt Ryan with the Falcons. You could reunite him. I think he'd be open with that. I don't know. It would be something that would help us get over that hump, I think. But yeah, that's what Wentz couldn't do. I mean, he wasn't really surrounded with weapons. We had Jonathan Taylor, who Matt Ryan is very looking forward to play with him because he's never had that. I mean,
Mike Davis
for a while. Mike Davis, he hasn't had that running back to hand the ball off to. And with a good defense, good O-line, we just need some receivers. So I think Julio and Landry would be my top two options that we could bring in.
Yeah, last time Matt Ryan had that good backfield, those Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman back in 2016. Look how that ended up.
Mm-hmm.
But also, obviously, that was a couple years ago. Matt Ryan has definitely aged. I could see a reunion with Julio Jones, like you said. That'd be a good one. Kind of give him another big body receiver that can go up and get it, like Pittman can. But maybe Landry, but they just really haven't done a whole lot with how much cap space they've had this offseason.
As a Michael Pittman dynasty holder, I always wonder. I mean, Zack, we've actually talked about this. Back on episode 54, we talked about it. How it works. With receivers going to different teams, how that impacts the receivers already there, right? I mean, we talked about with Hunter Renfrow and Devontae Adams. How does that help or hurt? And I think that question for me kind of translate Michael Pittman. If there's a guy, get a guy like Julio Jones, maybe you trade for a guy like Lockett Metcalf. I don't know, the possibilities of that. Or maybe you can get a guy like OBJ if he's ready for the season. But you think Michael Pittman, you think that helps or hurts his value getting a guy like that of that caliber?
I think it definitely helps because just they have basically no other weapons on the outside. Tight ends are nothing great. Mo Cox is, I don't know, I'd say average tight end, but their other receivers are pretty lackluster outside of Pittman. So I think for him, it definitely helps. And obviously I said it'll help for Renfrow too. I think it's kind of the same thing, because same kind of idea that it'll take some coverage off of them.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer. And because I think with the, we'll have to wait and see with that situation, if that comes about and happens, but same with the Raiders situation. That's an interesting thing going on in Vegas right now. But let's talk now more, guys, about the draft for the Indianapolis Colts. That's one way they could replenish, a receiver heavy draft. I'd say I really like some receivers in this draft. And yeah, with the Colts, with the picks, I mean, Jared, I'll go to you because you being the Colts fan, I guess what do you think they're going to target in this draft? Do you think it's going to be that receiver? Or where do you think they're going to go? How are they going to approach this draft? With trading some picks as well. Just how is this going to go?
I think that I don't want to draft a receiver. We don't have a first round pick or a third rounder. It would have to be a second rounder, and we're missing a lot of key positions on defense too, like cornerback. We have a star defense, but Xavier Rhodes is not reliable anymore. He's past his prime. We just traded away Rocky Sin for Yannick Ngakoue, right? So we got our edge rusher. We have Kwity Paye. We have a great defensive line, but just our cornerbacks. We have Julian Blackman, who's a safety, who's finally coming back off of his season-ending injury last year. He'll be a great piece for us. But then, obviously Kenny Moore is our star cornerback, but that's about all we got. I mean, we're missing a whole other cornerback. But if we trade for a receiver, then I don't think we need to target a receiver in the draft, because last draft we got players like Mike Strawn, who hasn't seen much playing time, but he's a tall player who can, make those catches, strong guy. And then we also get people like Paris Campbell back. So, we have some receivers, but we lost Zach Pascal. Obviously, Jack Doyle retired. We got Granson too. He's like a backup tight end, but that's about it. So, if we get some receivers in free agency, then we could target cornerbacks in the draft. But if we don't get any receivers, then I'm sure we should look to target one in the second round.
What do you think of that Rocky Sin and Yannick Ngakoue trade?
I liked it a lot because Yassine, he was coming off probably his best year as a Colt, but Ngakoue, we had to get an edge rusher. We had Kwity Paye. He's second-year player, obviously now out of Michigan. He just, looking back at highlights on the Raiders, he's just a beast. Coming off the end, we have two edges now that can do that, and with our defensive line, we can get a lot more sacks. And Yassine, he's had his ups and downs. 2 years ago, it was not good, and if we do get another cornerback, I think that it'll work out for us. But if we don't, I mean, it could hurt us in the end.
Yeah, I think that Ngakoue trade I really opened, my eyes for that for the Colts defense. I mean, they're great defense before that trade, of course, but looking at fantasy as well, maybe you're gonna, for me, not really dynasty kind of someone holds the defense, but single season fantasy, right? I think Colts defense got to be one of your target. I think scoring defense. I think they'll be able to accumulate a lot of points. So certainly a defense to keep your eyes out for, but. Yeah, with that, guys, is there any other things you want to talk about here before we get into more of the scheduling stuff for next year? Talk about how next year's going to go for this Colts squad.
One more thing. So Zach and I have a little side bet that we said we'd mention on the podcast. My bet is that the Colts will beat the Jaguars over the next 2 years, 4-0. Matt Ryan has never lost to the Jaguars. They're 4-0. He's 4-0 in his career. So Zach and I have a little bet. Over the next 2 years that the Colts will not lose a single game to the Jaguars. That's what I said. He said they lose at least.
Here, the Jaguars have a pretty impressive streak going on of, I think, 7 straight years. I mean, 7 straight years is pretty convincing. So I had to take that bet.
That's with Rivers, Brissett, Wentz, and a few years
Andrew
of luck.
Luck.
But a few years of luck. But yeah.
We're gonna see what the fans think on this. We're gonna do a poll. When this episode airs, we're going to see what they think of this bet. Who made the better choice? Do we get here what's on the line for this bet?
$20.
We got $20.
$20 on this line.
I can tell you right now that bet's going to favor Zach's point here because obviously it's just a meme at this point. They lost to the Jaguars, and no one's going to say, "Oh yeah, they'll beat them all 4 times." Like they're just going to go with on our right now. Monday
episodes, we call these long bets of the week, and now this is long bets of a couple years or 2 years, right? So. Well, we'll see. I mean, Zach could potentially win this bet after a game. So, pretty cool for him. Could rack in $20, put that towards sleeper.
The Colts made Trevor Lawrence look pretty good last year, and he didn't look very good at better games.
Yeah, he's only going to get better with
his worst games of the year. So, I mean,
but
make a difference.
Speaking of that, let's talk about the schedule for the next year for the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe we'll hear Zach say 0-17 here, but Jared, I mean, technically here we'll have you as the guest. You could go first, but let me read the 17 opponents for the 2022 Indianapolis Colts season here. So starts out here, our Commanders, and that's at Indianapolis, and then at Dallas, at Denver, at Houston, hosting Jacksonville, hosting Tennessee, hosting Kansas City, hosting the LA Chargers, hosting the Eagles, going to Jacksonville, going to Vegas, going to New York, play the Giants, at Tennessee, hosting Pittsburgh, at Minnesota, and then at New England to play the Patriots. So what do you think?
Try not to be biased here. I feel like if they take one from the Titans, let's remember here.
That's not going to happen.
Okay. Carson Wentz went 12-5. Not Carson Wentz. Phillip Rivers went 12-5 with the Colts. And Matt Ryan, I can see as a better Phillip Rivers. I think they take one from the Titans, and I'm gonna go high. I'm gonna say 13-4.
Holy God!
Going 13-4 because they take one from the Titans. Otherwise, it'll be 12-5. Book it.
That's worse than my Jets 9-8 pick.
Okay, Zach, you go second here.
I mean, it is a pretty easy schedule.
It is.
I'm going 9-8.
Oh my God.
I'll go 10-7.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, read the opponents again.
I got to read them again here. All right.
Commanders, easy win. Giants, easy win. There's some easy games on there.
Do you say Raiders easy win?
No, Giants.
Oh,
they do have the Giants. They got, of course, they have all divisional opponents twice.
Backing up my bet. They're going to beat Houston
Cowboys,
twice and Jacksonville twice.
They got
They're going
Steelers,
2-4 in the division.
Vikings.
God, 2-4.
Look, I'll go 10-7. They could sneak in with a 10-7 record in the playoffs. I mean,
they're not making the playoffs.
What about that team doesn't say anything other than that? They had 7 Pro Bowlers, and that was without a quarterback. And they
look, Jared, I'm saying they're playoff team. I don't see the problem.
I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying. Only way they make the playoffs is if they win that division, and I don't see that happening.
So what I'm saying is
their AFC West
AFC is
AFC
tough.
North.
Yes.
I think those are going to be the 2 divisions that have all the wild card teams.
AFC is tough, but I say with the schedule they have, it's an easy schedule. Like they play like 4 hard teams all year.
Yeah,
Like,
but they also
I
lost
don't
to
see them-
Jacksonville last year, so I mean,
Wentz lost to Jacksonville last year. He had an awful game. I don't know how you
So-
say they lose to Jacksonville twice this year. No,
This is productive.
no,
13 and
but
four.
not twice, once.
You said
They
2
lose
and
to
4 in the
Texans
division.
once.
You said, oh my god.
Davis
See?
Mills had some flashes last year.
The Colts beat the Texans 80-3 overall last year.
another side bet? Question mark.
Yes, I'll bet money on that right now, right here, right now.
For the next 2 years,
Yeah, over the next 2
if
years.
we double it, $40 that about the Colts
Both of them?
not
Like
losing. Yeah,
all or nothing? No, I want to do 2 $20 bets.
all right, we can do that.
All right, I'm writing it down. I mean,
Right here.
we're gonna talk about these
Let's do
tomorrow. You'll hear it on the air, right? So they're happening. You guys are shaking on it. I mean, with that, I guess, do you guys have anything else on the Indianapolis Colts here? I mean, I have the records down 13-4, 10-7, 9-8.
9-8. Wow.
So,
Oh, I think we're good.
all right. Well, with that, we're gonna go and we're gonna talk some Titans here. So, one of Jared's divisional rivals, and we'll see what he thinks of the Colts picks right now.
Stupid.
One of them's a loss.
Oh my god.
The arguing continues here as we resume the second half of the podcast. We actually had a no-show, our first no-show here. The Titans Fanatic did not want to come on and talk Titans football, sadly.
Yeah,
But-
we got some beef with them now.
That's
We got
that's okay, because the Journey to the Million squad, we know the Titans because we know they're going to beat the Colts twice this year. So with that, that's all we need to know. And let's talk now about the Tennessee Titans here. The second half of the episode. Just had to show you guys the argument I had to listen to. They're still going at it, but it's all in good fun. And with that, let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. I guess we all going to give them a grade now because we're all going to be Titans experts in this episode. So we saw them lose, have that 1 seed, and Cincinnati goes into Tennessee, and yeah, I mean, they take care of business. I know we saw one of the best defensive games, we've seen the Titans play in a long time. In that game, really took care of Joe Burrow, but Ryan Tannehill just was not it that game, and that's going to be a question we'll talk about in this episode. But grades wise, I'll start with you, Zach, and then we'll make our way around. But where would you grade the Tennessee Titans?
Regular season, I'll
Yep.
give them A-. They had some
Whole
injuries.
season.
They still made playoffs, got the 1 seed. Postseason, offensively, F. It couldn't be worse.
I need a whole season. Though, so
Defensively, it's pretty good. All right, so I'll average it out. I'll say a B.
yeah,
'Cause they got the 1 seed, but
I'll go.
yeah, they did
And
too
I
much.
think, this was the year to do it. One of the years to do it, I think, for Tennessee. Even having like Derrick Henry coming back, ultimately, I know it didn't really seem like he was the same, but I got to go C+. It just, it wasn't, I feel the expectations were there and they were just not met. Jared?
Yeah, with the whole AFC strength this year. I mean, obviously with the Colts going 13-4, it's going to be hard for the Titans to get some games under their belt like that. So I mean, yeah, last year I'd give them a B- overall. If Henry stays healthy the whole year, I think they do a little better. But he didn't. Obviously, he got hurt and he did not look the same when he came back. So maybe that hurts him again this upcoming year, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that you hit it on the nose with that, but let's talk about the Titans, right? Some of the moves we've seen made. One of the bigger ones, I mean, I'll start with it right away. I think Julio Jones, like that, the shocker, him getting released. It was big news, when he came in. I myself was happy, happy. I'm actually sadly a Julio Jones dynasty holder. It's one of, it's something I don't like to bring up, but I am. I also am a Ryan Tannehill dynasty holder. I know, another thing that's not really exciting right now, but
both tough spots.
we got to talk about good moves. Robert Woods for a 6th. I know the whole injury thing. I'm a Titans fan. I'm enthused about that move. Jared, we'll start with you. I know you lose Julio Jones, but getting Robert Woods for that price, I think that's a good price.
Yeah, like you said, just the price. I mean, if it was for like a 2nd or a 3rd, like that probably wouldn't be the best move. But I mean, they got him for a 6th, and that's crazy. Like you lose Julio Jones, who was your probably number 2 receiver, definitely your number 2 behind AJ Brown, and now you got Robert Woods, who will miss a few games with that injury he had.
He'll be back around the beginning of the season, though.
Around the
Is
beginning, okay.
It wasn't right at the end. It was regular
Yeah,
season
true.
when he got hurt.
True. Yeah. So I mean, it's a great move. I mean, bring in a guy like him, still have your two weapons even when you lose Julio. Now you bring in him, so you got your two weapons with him and AJ Brown, and then you always got Henry. So I mean, that was a good move, I thought.
Yeah, and I mean Henry. Just go ahead, Zach. Yeah.
One of the big things is why they got him for 6 though is because of the contract. I think his cap hit is upper teens, mid-teens, something like that. So it's kind of a similar reason why Julio Jones got cut is because his cap hit was in the 20 million range. So that's why Robert Woods was able. You could get him for a 6th rounders because his cap hit was probably more than he was going to be productive for the team. And obviously, the Rams just felt that Allen Robinson would be a better fit for them. So that's kind of why they got that. But I do like the move. Gives them that other weapon. And I'd say it's upgrade over Julio at this point in their careers.
You do think
exactly.
that? Okay. That's what I was going to ask you.
That's where I'm going. I think, and plus he still is a cheaper option regardless. I think being a cheaper option and still, might not be much, but still having that, maybe that more upside considering what we saw to Julio last year, injury-wise, it's just not ideal, right? So I like the move for, the Titans and defensive-wise, I think, they're still looking good, right? I mean, what we saw last year was impressive out of that Tennessee Titans defense because, I mean, they're not known years past, for their defense, but they really showed up this year, I guess. Overall, what do you guys think, of that defense? And we talked about it here on the episodes as well. Just the blitzes they were dialing up just worked to perfection in the playoffs. But, I mean, floor is your guys's.
They had 9 sacks, right, against the Bengals?
9.
Yeah,
yep.
That's crazy. So, I mean, they bring that next year. That's scary. I mean, they weren't always known for a great defense, but, I mean, that's crazy. If they can keep that into next year, I'd watch out for them. Maybe even draft them for some dynasty defenses or just any fantasy in general.
Yeah, their corners aren't the best, but obviously they have Bayard as one of their safeties. And then that front 7 is crazy good. I mean, you got Jeffrey Simmons, then you got Harold Landry, I think it's pronounced, but he's got his big extension. So that front 7 is really good. And then you got some good linebackers to back that up and with some good safeties as well. So it's a pretty solid defense. They could use another corner maybe, but I really like that defense, and they'll probably shut down the Colts next year.
Yeah.
I mean, both squads have good, solid defenses, so that'll be a nice battle. But, looking, with the draft, I mean, I know we mentioned the secondary, the corners being a weakness for this Titans squad. Perfect way, I think, to address that weakness would be, through the draft, getting some of those young corners. They have a first rounder, and, that could be a way to maybe replenish that spot right away. I know I always like to look at some mock drafts to see, consensus. I like to look overall to see what the general consensus is saying, also make my own formulation, right? They have them going to the offensive lineman route as well because I need 1 to 2 more guys on the line as well. But, some have like them getting Traylon Burks, a receiver. I find that maybe that does not take into, Robert Woods being there, but general consensus has them go in offensive lineman first round. Do you guys think that's the likelihood for the Titans?
I could see that, yeah. When you have a running back like Derrick Henry and then you have Tannehill, who all he really needs to be is average at best. Just be able to give him some time with the line. Just give him a little bit of time to throw the ball to his receivers, and then Henry is always there for the main option. So, I mean, a little upgrade is all you really need at the line. I think they're good enough right now, but yeah, they could get 1 or 2 more, even like depth pieces.
Yeah, I think Tannehill he kind of needs what the Colts need out of Matt Ryan. They need a quarterback that maybe not's going to win them, maybe won't win them games, but isn't going to lose them games. But I think Tennessee's biggest need is probably right tackle after releasing Quisenberry this offseason. So they do need another tackle. Quisenberry was pretty good in run blocking. He was a top 5 tackle or something like that. But he was pretty bad at pass blocking, which definitely did not help Tannehill out, especially in the playoffs. So I can see them going offensive line, kind of right tackle, first round, and then one of the third rounders going towards corner.
Because also corners, I mean, guys available. Andrew Booth out of Clemson might be a guy that could sneak there. Trent McDuffie as well out of Washington. Both those guys, they got them 20 to 30 range, right in the 20s. And them being at 26 certainly puts them on possibilities. get a guy like that. Of course, they could trade up, trade down. I don't see that really happening right now, but I like what Zack said. Go offensive line right away, get a solid guy in the first round, and then maybe take more of a defensive mind later throughout the draft. I think that might be the way we see Tennessee Titans roll. But other than that, guys, do you want to talk more, about free agents? I know we saw Austin Hooper. He got a 1-year deal from the squad. I guess. What are your thoughts on that? I know Hooper's not really the same guy we saw. He had that breakout year with Atlanta, a few years before he signed with Cleveland. But what do you guys think of Austin Hooper?
Do you think this boosts his fantasy value at all, going to Tennessee over Cleveland?
Yeah. Well, now that with them having Deshaun, I still think so. Because
I think so too, because they had Njoku, who was always like an average average tight end, and now Hooper can be like his own tight end, I guess. Obviously a downgrade from quarterback, from Watson to Tannehill, but I mean, yeah.
Well, you Baker last year though too, but yeah,
true, yeah.
So I'd like.
We're not talking Browns, but do you think Njoku is also going to be a good fantasy option this year with Hooper gone? Kind of has the whole tight end position in Cleveland to himself now.
Oh yeah, I mean, they are looking for like Odell. He might be returning to Cleveland, so it depends what they're doing, but we can get into that on a different episode.
Yeah.
Could certainly happen there. I guess. Well, with that, I mean, we got to talk about next year's predictions, right? I know Jared's high on the Colts, with a 13-4 record. They're winning that division then with a record like that? But
yeah,
what do we think from the Titans next year? The one concern, Derrick Henry gets another year older. I guess what can we expect out of him is a question that needs to be answered. Coming off that injury. Do you guys think, Henry will be okay? I mean, this year, but like how many more years do we have left of the dominance that he has had these past, 5-6 years?
It's only getting harder from here on out. I mean, he's getting older. AFC is getting very hard. Their schedule this year is looking pretty tough too. So, I mean, I don't see that many more years with him. I mean, they got, who's their backup? Foreman? Is that his name? Yeah, I think it's
Devontae Foreman.
Foreman went
to
Foreman,
but he's gone
to Carolina.
Oh, is he gone? Okay,
Carolina.
So yeah,
they have I forget his name, but there's the other guy that was kind of with Foreman.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, maybe a few years left for Henry, but we'll see.
28 now, and I they always throw the number 26, 27s when we see the decline for running back. I guess, I don't know how much you want to value that number at being like an average, but certainly it's been true for a lot of big names. So I guess maybe he can be an exception with his bigger stature, but we'll have to wait and see with that, I guess. But let's talk, scheduling. Go ahead, Zach.
He didn't look good in the playoffs.
That's the one concern. That injury might be a little decline there, but he was running away with some rushing records, and then that injury happened, and JT took over, right? So
I mean, it's a foot too. It's a big part of a running back's game. You need your feet, yeah. So I mean, that's going to hurt him a lot.
That's why to being if you are a dynasty holder for Henry, I don't know what you do right now. I guess you kind of just ride it because
trade him.
Well, his value right now, Zach, might not be after that playoff game. I mean, not everyone might be thinking.
You think you could still get like maybe a first? Kind of depends how much the people in your league value the draft picks. I mean, personally, if I was trading for Henry, I would a first rounder. End of the first round, I would give up. Beginning, kind of probably depends how much you like some of the prospects in the draft, but I think you could probably get a first rounder from in most leagues.
Probably, right? And we'll have to wait and see how that goes too, because I know in our dynasty league that we're in a 12-team one, there hasn't been really any trades yet in the offseason. We got to really get that jump started, make some trades happen, trade some picks. I know there's a little, some trades where trade talks were happening in our league, but
yeah, Drew's sending me some terrible.
Oh, come
trades.
on, says you. But yeah, we'll do another podcast, Fantasy Football League, of course. That's always something we like to do on Sleeper. Go join our Sleeper squad. DM any of us for the link. But let's talk Titans' schedule for next year, 2022 to 2023. Their schedule. I'll read the 17 opponents. Zach, are you going first today? I'll make you go first.
I suppose I could go for.
Here we go. At Washington, at Houston, at Indianapolis, at Jacksonville, at Kansas City, at Los Angeles to play the Chargers, at Philadelphia, hosting Houston, hosting Indy, hosting Jacksonville, hosting Denver, hosting Vegas, hosting Dallas, hosting New York Giants, going to Buffalo to play the Bills, going to Lambeau to play the Packers, and then hosting Cincinnati. So rematch there to round it out. But what do you think, Zach?
I'm going to go 11-6.
Okay, so let me ask you something, Zach. You read both of those schedules, Colts and Titans, and you think Titans are easier or do you think they're harder?
Oh, they're definitely harder, but I think Titans are a better team and just have less holes, and I think their offense is a little bit more dynamic. They have a lot more weapons than
with an aging running
Indianapolis
back
does.
that Indianapolis has JT, who is a young running back, right?
Yeah, but Henry's he's older. He's 5 years older or whatever, but he's still good. I think he'll still be solid this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably get his usual 500 carries or whatever and average 5 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think obviously AJ Brown and Robert Woods along with Hooper, I think it's just a more dynamic offense that's a little bit harder to cover, especially if Tannehill is playing good football, unlike he was in that divisional round game in the playoffs.
Yeah, their weapons are definitely better than the Colts. I guess I'll go ahead with my record. So I got the Colts obviously at 13-4. So I think that the Colts take 1 out of 2 from Tennessee. I think the Titans will take the home game against the Colts. But then obviously rounding out the year with Buffalo, Green Bay, and Cincinnati. They got the Raiders in there, Denver with Russell Wilson, Chiefs, Chargers. They got a tough schedule. So I'm going to say that they go 1 game worse than the Colts. I'll give them 12-5.
Okay. I'll go. I'm going to go with Zach here. I like the 11-6, so I'll stick with that. But so I give him a game better than the Colts then is how mine looks. But I guess, do you guys have anything else with those standings? Any other final arguments on either side here?
So you're just saying, both you are thinking the Titans are going to win the AFC South?
Yeah.
Drew, is there a question?
Drew, do you think the Colts still make the playoffs? Right? You said that.
I did say that, Zach, but
so
the AFC West, it gets tough because again that division. But I think the Colts, because that division is going to beat up on each other. I mean that's just how it is. So that might help the Colts out. So to give them, they play, a squad like Jacksonville that might help out, but who knows? It should theoretically help out, right? But and the Texans, right? Both those should help. So I will say I think the Colts do sneak in the playoffs.
Because both these teams in the division are probably going to go 4-2 in the division, you would think. Or not 4-2. They can't. Yeah, they should. Right? Yeah, 4-2. I would think if they both took. Yeah. So about that. So maybe I think the Colts. I mean, if they go 10-7, like you're saying, I don't think there's a chance that they even get into the playoffs. With the AFC being that tough, I mean, you got 4 teams in the West that are all possible playoff teams.
I think one of the teams in the West isn't going to make it, but then obviously you got the North with the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns all this year.
A lot of good teams.
Tough division.
That's just how it is. That's why I think you got to pick and choose. And I'll give the Colts the nod because, last year I think a sour taste in their mouth. I think we could certainly see it happen because I don't think, all 4 teams are, something's going to happen. Injuries happen, right? I mean, we could see in the AFC West something happens, right? The Browns might flop. There's things that could happen. That's where I truly think, take other factors, that could happen. I think that might really help the Colts out, but you got to wait and see, right?
I just feel like coming from a Colts fan, after what Jim Irsay said about how he guarantees the Colts to win multiple Super Bowls in the next decade and that they're all in for the next few years, the way the season ended last year, it kind of leaves Colts fans feeling like, well, if we're not going to do anything, then I guess we're just going to waste our whole roster. We got a great roster, and I feel like if they don't make a big push this year, they're going to lose a lot of support, and people are just going to start questioning all their decisions. So I mean, I think they're going to have a great season this year. Titans will be obviously right up there with them again, like always in the division. But I mean, we'll see what happens.
Personally, I think they should do whatever they could to get Russ. Since they didn't have a shot with Watson because it's in the division, but if he really does want to go all in, they should went and got Russ, whether it means giving up an extra 3rd rounder than Denver or whatever. But if you're going to go all in, you need a good quarterback that can compete with the other good quarterbacks in the league.
That's what I said. Going all in for Matt Ryan doesn't sound like a big improvement. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and that's just how it is. We're going to have to wait and see. That's the beauty of these off-season previews. But, you guys got anything else before we wrap up here?
Should be it.
Awesome. So that wraps up episode 15 here of Journey to Millions. So thank you all for listening to yet another episode of Jordan and Drew, the Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.